What is not answering his telephone?
Is answered now. Is just
Here's
now
how to
answered,
comment
but
during the
not-
Frankly
and it-
Speaking show. On your computer, look to the right of the video. That's your live chat hub. Click the Say Something box at the bottom, type your message, and hit enter. Boom, you're live. On the mobile app, it's just as easy. Tap the live chat button right under the video to open the window. Pro tip, if you're in full screen mode, tap the screen once and hit the chat icon to see messages without leaving the action. Can't type? Check two things. Make sure you're signed in and see if subscribers only mode is on. You might need to sub and wait a few minutes. Keep it respectful, follow the mods' rules, and have fun.
Good day. Good day. It's Child Month and it's Mother's Day here in Jamaica. And the two have more than passing commonalities. We say a special thanks to all women who have mothered their own birth child or children or other people's children. It's a gift. Motherhood is a special gift. And it's your special day. Happy Mother's Day. And to Winnie right here with us. Winnie, happy Mother's Day.
Thank you.
So today we are focusing on Child Month's theme, mental health and children. Sometimes we don't recognize that children may have mental health issues that affect their behavior, school learning, interaction with peers and family. We'll speak with Professor Wendell Abel, who will help us understand mental health issues, especially in children. And just let me tell you right away that Professor Abel will be a little bit late. He's working through some things, but he'll be with us. With me are panelists Desmond Richards and Winnie Anderson Brown. Welcome to you, our viewers and listeners, for this episode number 209 of the Frankly Speaking Jamaica Podcast. Remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We invite your questions and comments in this podcast to that live chat segment. You may place your chats there by following the instructions given at the start of the program, or just go to the space for chats, comments on the channel. Now, last week we didn't manage our program as tightly as we should have, so we missed a couple of things. So we just going to take the opportunity to take them on. And we want to start with laughter, because Winnie had prepared us little segment for us on laughter. It was World Laughter Day. And don't let me hear any of you saying you didn't know. Because Winnie's going to tell you a little bit about it. Winnie, please go ahead.
Okay. Well, interestingly enough, World Laughter Day is the first Sunday in May. And although it has nothing to do with Child's Month in Jamaica, it happens to be during Child's Month. And one of the features of laughter yoga is childlike playfulness. So when it comes, we try to be as childlike, not childish, childlike as possible. Children are curious. Children don't need a reason to laugh. They throw a ball and they laugh. Children just laugh readily. And that is really healthy. So World Laughter Day, it is celebrated all over the world. And last Sunday was a day that there were many gatherings right here. Hear me saying here in Jamaica, right there in Jamaica. There are some people who are specially trained to deal with the psychosocial issues post Melissa. And these 12 persons who were trained, they were trained to help people to reach for your laughter when you don't feel like it. We're part of the wellness industry. We are not a part of the entertainment industry. So even if we are entertaining, we're not about entertainment. We are about wellness, about health. So it is very important to understand the distinction. These laughter leaders and we who are laughter yoga leaders and teachers, we are about wellness. We are about health. We laugh for no reason. We don't give jokes. And on the screen you will see two of the ladies who were trained. Why you see them outside of the group is that it's a 2-day event, and they came on day 2 to Maypen where the training was done, and they had to do day 1 elsewhere and then put things together. So right there in Jamaica, there are laughter leaders who will help you to reach for your laughter when you don't feel like it.
Winnie, give us a scientific basis for this laughter, for laughter.
Okay, talking about the scientific basis, I'm going to begin at this point. The body does not know the difference. Notice I said the body, not the mind. Know the difference between fake and real laughter. You get the same benefits from fake laughter that you would get from laughter. A lot of information is available on that. A lot of studies have been done. The research has been done. And this is not new. Norman Cousins from way back when, there's a book called The Anatomy of an Illness. This man, Norman Cousins, he was diagnosed with terminal illness. And he said, in my own words, I'm telling you the story in a nutshell. He said, if I am going to die, might as well I die a happy man. So he surrounded himself with lots of things to make him laugh. And he found that he was getting better and better. So there are many stories that is documented. There's a film and there's a book. And Dr. Kataria, the doctor who came up with this system, is Dr. Madan Kataria in India. He said, I'm a doctor. So if laughter is the best medicine, why am I not making people laugh? So that is what he started to do in 1995. He started in a park. 5 persons met in a park in Mumbai. And they just like I started, they started giving jokes. But if you keep on giving jokes, what will happen? After a time, we say in Jamaica, the joke gets stale. So it's not sweet again. And you start arguing whether or not that is how the joke is. So he decided, a lady told him that if that's what you're going to do, doctor, I'm not coming back the next day. So he said, well, as of tomorrow, we will be laughing without jokes. And
so you have consistently told me just in chatting that one doesn't need a joke to laugh. And that's not what so your organization, should I call it that? What's the name of it, and how does one contact it and get in touch with
Laughter Yoga? It's Laughter Yoga International. However, individuals, these persons who have been trained and certified, they can be contacted individually. They would have to give you their numbers, but I can give you my number, and my number can always be displayed because I can be reached. Yes. And what do? We teach you how to use laughter and breathing to improve health. When people get depressed, the laughter goes. That's the first thing you notice, that the laughter goes when people get depressed. So it is important to make sure that you keep your laugh life going.
All right. Good. Thanks, Winnie. We are waiting on, just to tell the viewers and listeners, we are waiting on Professor Wendell Abel to join us on children
Until,
and mental health.
until
Desmond, go
Dr.
ahead.
Until Dr. Abel comes, I would like to use the opportunity to send some condolences to one of our colleagues, Ben Brody. And Brody lost his wife on Thursday morning.
And his
So
business, she was also his business associate at the
she
news.
she was the foundation, the art of the newspaper. Ben was the face, but Mrs. Brody was the heart and one who contributed a lot to journalism behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And
And
I am using
I appreciate that, Desmond, and I join with you, and we join with you. And I have to tag
Yes.
on here Daniel
Yes.
Thompson. Last week, our time was,
Yes.
we crunched our time and we didn't get to mention our condolences to Daniel Thompson's family, his colleagues at Radio Jamaica. And boy, let me tell you, Daniel was a humble
Yes.
man. He had his own show. He used to be a continuity announcer. He had his own show. He did something, I can't remember what they call it now, but with Emily, and that really put a punch to that part of Hotline. And colleagues and friends and family of Daniel Thompson.
yes.
In
You know
peace.
something, Franklin? Looking the RJR group, as since I think it's since 2021. Every year since 21, they have been losing some of our great stalwarts, If you look back, Doreen Samuels, Michael Sharp,
Alan.
Alan Magnus,
Alan Magnus, yes, and Mikey Thompson, no, and that other I just forget his name. That other sports journalist there last year, remember?
Oh yes, but I think he had moved on to CVM. I know who you're talking.
Yes.
While we talk about death, we work in so many different areas of life. Some of my friends help with, some of my colleagues, I should say, we deal with serious issues. Laughter is serious business. So death is something very serious. Well, and I'll share this with you. When I was doing the laughter leader training in December, my only living sister, she died the Tuesday, and the Thursday, Friday, those were the days for the training. And I remember someone asked, how do you laugh when you have someone who is dead, when someone close to you has died? How do you laugh? Because she was not there on day one. And the participant said to her, well, her sister died. How did I get through that? Now, my sister, thankfully, the last time she came to Jamaica, I was invited to the University of the West Indies. I was invited to do a session before exams to relieve stress with members of the Mary Seacole Hall. And my sister was there. And during the training, what helped me is that my sister used to laugh until the tears come. Anytime she's laughing, she's wiping her eyes. And that's how I saw her. I saw her wiping her eyes and laughing. So during the whole thing, I was able to focus, do what I have to do, knowing that my sister, she understood that we are not here to stay. So I chose that part to focus on. So even in death, it's not because we do not laugh because we're happy. We're happy because we laugh. That's when the endorphins are released, when we laugh. So it is not saying that, oh, because I have something wonderful going on why I laugh, but it is important to laugh to help us to get through the tough times. In Jamaica, Desmond, you know the saying, you take kin teeth, keep a heartburn. It's
Yes,
really
I know
true.
that name. Yes.
Yes, it's really true. And sometimes you don't. Laughter is contagious. So sometimes you don't feel like it, but you look back at the things that the people used to do that made you laugh, or you used to laugh with these people. So you laugh with
Yes.
them as if they are alive.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
La-
thanks again, Winnie. A
yes,
reminder that we are coming up. We are hoping to join Professor Wendell Abel, our guest today. We have not yet connected with him, but he has told our producer Joshua of when he's coming on. I just also use this opportunity, Desmond. I'm going to ask for your contribution in this regard too. Last week, as many people might remember, we had a discussion about um, revival from Melissa, restoration
good.
from Melissa. We spoke with people from the West, and we spoke with
Yes,
two women in particular who had done everything they said to get assistance. One of them had actually also gone to a function at which the Minister of Labor and Social Security was the guest and was assuring people of their benefits. Well, at the end of that program, I advised that I was going to check with the minister's assistant and see what was the situation with those people in particular. One of the people who was with us, Mr. Keith Wedderburn, also supplied us with a list of people with TRN. He went right through what their list. These are people who had lost house or roof, and he had made it possible and what gave it to Desmond. So Desmond is going to tell us what he did with that. But let me just tell you that I reached out to this assistant of the minister. I won't call her name, although she's a public person. And she asked me for the contact with these particular people. Well, some of the people who were identified by Mr. Wedderburn from Belmont, some of them started getting funds, getting responses last week, Desmond, during the week after our program. They thanked us. I don't know if we should be thanked, but I know that the ministry staff and so on went ahead and got over whatever hurdles there were to help them. And I can tell you that on Friday, I reached out to one who I couldn't reach at all earlier. She was going to get me her TRN number, and she got back to me and said, I don't need to give it to you anymore. I just get a pop up on my phone. They've told me how much I'm going to receive, and I believe them, and so I'm grateful. So, my experience, and we did make the effort late in the week, I must admit. Late in the week, I didn't go as early as I thought I would, but the ministry has been responding to some
Yes.
of the things spoken.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I did a follow up to what you did on Monday and Sunday. I did a follow up on Monday when I got those names, and I spoke to some two other people, two other victims. And as I said, I sent that to you. I said they sent me, Mr. Wedderburn sent me a response from people that they have started to receive benefits and information. So I would say that our programs, Sunday and Monday, have paid off, and the people in Belmont have started to receive their benefits. So
Yes.
We have done something to help those
And
people.
I think so. And I want to thank Mr. Wedderburn in particular for, as a community man, for painstakingly taking on this job of listing the people, getting the TRN for each one of them, and making that available. And it was made available. And he made it available to you, Desmond, and I also sent it on to the assistant of the ministry. But
Yeah.
it's good to do these things, but we shouldn't have to do that. We really shouldn't have to do that. The needs
The
are great.
the system is not working, Franklin. The system that is in place to assist hurricane victims is not working.
And I can't deny that. I can't deny you on that, Desmond. It's clear that it needs some oomph, it needs some push, but I'm still happy that the people in the ministry moved and assisted some of those persons who we were speaking, and I suspect some others. And Desmond and I have been talking, just talking about the journalism and the coverage for these people and what really has been happening in Jamaica. Because, as I've said, up to last week, I know people who are still just clearing things from the wharf, which had been sent from last year.
The other thing we have to follow up. Remember that the Minister of Local Government gave a deadline, the 8th of May.
I think they met the deadline, Desmond. I think they met the deadline to get the shelteries. Every time I use that word, I hate myself for it. Get the shelter, the victims of the hurricane, out of Petersfield High School. And as far as I'm aware, there was some ceremony and all that, and they were moved out so that classes are going to be held. Petersfield is in a particular.
I saw a report where the people are saying that where they sent them, that is in very, very poor condition.
Oh, you mean where they sent them from Petersfield School?
Yes.
Well, it's a bad situation though that in Jamaica, with so much still, after 6 months, people are still in shelter. It's a bad situation. And I know that one of the arguments is that people don't want to leave where they are from, that vicinity, where they suffered loss. They don't necessarily want to move from there. But, oh man, 6 months, come on. We can do better than that. And we should still do better than that.
Yes, we should.
Just reminding you that, go ahead, Desmond.
You don't get Dr. Abel as yet.
We are going to be having Professor Abel in, he said, 4:30. Joshua's been keeping us informed.
Okay. All right.
Winnie, I see a response to your comments that you were expressing 2 words, and I think they had to do with your comments about laughter and death and laughter and so on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to say though that I realize that it's very challenging for a number of people who are accustomed to laughing at people. They are accustomed to ridicule. It's very hard for some people to really adjust, because a joke is wonderful if you're not the butt of the joke. So we don't give jokes because everybody should be able to laugh.
Jokes are good, man. Jokes are fantastic.
Not all of them. Can I tell you something? You said jokes are good. I remember I was at this radio station during Black History Month, and I was trying to find something on the program. The program was Laugh Now, and I was trying to find a joke that had anything to do with Black people. And I really searched, and I found one that made me smile, but the smile quickly disappeared. And this was it. If a Pole and a black person were in a race together, what would happen?
If a Pole,
A Pole,
mm-hmm.
the Pole would win. Why? Because a black person would stop to put graffiti on the wall. And at first I smiled because I said, can you imagine being in a race and you stop to go put graffiti on wall? Just the thought of that. And then when I saw just that view of a black person, the smile just disappeared. So you have
But
those
do you,
jokes.
but Winnie, do you
Yes.
think that if a black person and a Pole were in realistically now, if a black person in a race, that they would stop to put graffiti on a wall?
And that
That
is
you would,
why it's not funny. That is why, although it was a joke, it's not funny. So this is what I'm
you
saying.
think
By the time
Well,
you think
that's
both
not a funny joke, really. Many
you
people think
think
jokes
both
and
to
you
do
can never find the punchline.
you
no,
think bold to do that? Huh? You think bold to do that?
you see, that is why we don't go there, because you argue one thing about laughter. Laughter, humor, it's subjective. Laughter is universal, but humor is subjective. What makes you laugh may not make me laugh. And what
Yes.
makes Jamaicans laugh may not make people of other nationalities laugh. But laughter is universal. We all laugh, but we all don't have a similar sense of humor.
Okay.
Yeah.
Franklin,
Yeah.
you know something that we should not take our focus off. Um and again I have to take issue with my colleagues in the media. I am talking about police killings. We should not take our focus off that, because something must be done to make the police wear body cameras, right?
Mhm.
And we at Frankly Speaking, we should not take our focus off it.
I agree with you, Desmond. And even though that there's not what appears to be a critical mass against it, I agree with you, because it's a way of, we should keep there educating people and at least getting people to think about it. Why are we cutting down so many Jamaican young men, so many young Jamaican men who must have quality, certainly have families, certainly have a right to go before the courts if they are suspects. Why are we cutting down so many of them? Even if some of us decide long before we know anything about what happened that them wicked and so on, we should keep at it. I'm just reminding people, and we expect to be joined any minute now by Professor Wendell Abel on the matter of children and mental health. But I'm going to put one more on the table because somebody has been asking me about this, and it's something that I think that we should deal with. How do we deal with death in Jamaica? How do we deal
Wow.
with death in Jamaica?
Wow.
And people don't like to discuss death too much, but it's something that requires. And let me tell you one of the parts of it that I absolutely abhor. I hate it. It is the turning of the front of a church into various stalls for vending of all sorts of normally food items and drink. Funeral is taking place the service is taking place at the church. And at the church gate, the first time I saw it, I nearly freaked out. Right here in Jamaica, the first time I saw it was in St. Elizabeth. At the front of it, people come and set up their stall, set up their car back open with thing, and they're selling cane, orange. They roast. Nowadays they're going to roasting, doing jerk out at the back there, liquor, everything that you can think of. They're selling out there at the church, and people come out and people hang around. It is one of the worst things I believe that has happened to Jamaica.
There's
And in
worse than
discussing
that,
it,
Franklin. Sorry.
yes.
There's worse than that. what
Like
what is
what, Winnie?
what is worse than that for me is the expectation of the family, what others expect of the family. Anywhere you are to get it from, you are supposed to provide big feast. And what is worse is that after you feed them, they mess up the yard and leave it for you to clean. That's not how Jamaicans used to be. They
No,
mess up the
no.
yard, mess up the place, and you have dead to bury. But you need to go clean up after you feed them.
Well,
It is,
Winnie, I don't know if that is worse than the dead yard
no,
cleaning.
they
I
are
don't know if that is
selling.
worse than
They are
selling out of the
selling
church yard,
outside. No, they're
out of
selling
the front of the
outside.
church.
Yes, but
Yeah,
they're
at the
selling
gate of the church.
outside. And they'll tell you that they have harvests where people sell to. So they will argue about that. But give me a reason. You feed people, you provide garbage bins, and they just mess up the place and leave it, and you have dead. They come and place order. I want Heineken. I don't want this. And they quarrel about the dead yard. Food not enough. But when people used to bring food, they never used to
But
descend and
yes, but people come in for a laugh, Winnie. That's why they come and ask
no,
for a
we
particular
don't keep
liquor.
there's no laugh. No, we're not in that. We're not in that. No, you have to be caring. When someone has dead, people used to come and help you with your children because they realize that you're grieving. They would take things. They don't come to take from you and steal your things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Things
Well,
have
Oh.
changed.
that also changed years ago, Winnie.
Things have changed,
Desmond?
Winnie.
But we don't have to
No,
accept those horrible
things
changes.
have, I agree with you. Things have changed, but people selling at the gate of our churches because there's a market there. If their
Yes,
goods were, if nobody were buying their goods, they wouldn't be there
there would
selling
be any
frankly.
sellers.
Yeah,
There
so
wouldn't be any
I'm
sellers.
talking. I'm not the vendors I'm blaming. I'm talking about something that has spread across Jamaican society, right? And
Mm.
people buy into it. The people going into the church buying into it. It's like people can't sit down somewhere for hour and a half, 2 hours. By the way, some of them go on for 4 hours. I went to one recently. And without having to eat or without having to drink a
It's not,
liquor.
it's not
I
all
mean,
churches that you go and see that, you know. It's not
no?
all churches you go. You won't see that at the St. Andrew Parish Church.
Okay.
Let me read it. Let me read this comment. Let me read this comment from Vando Palmer. It says, I thought COVID had taught us a lesson that funerals don't have to be what we see nowadays.
Mm.
Oh, I suspect he means by that the numbers. Remember, during
Not
COVID, the
just the
numbers were
numbers. No, they weren't selling and carrying on like that during COVID.
and the events surrounding it.
They couldn't do that during COVID.
No, that's what I'm saying. We
Yes,
learned
so
that
he's
we didn't
right.
have to have big funeral. We didn't have to have
Right.
big funeral and big
Right.
nyamins.
Right. And being rapacious, I call it. I'm so annoyed when I see people just descend on the bereaved and they have all kinds of expectations. That is so wrong.
Yes. And then
Yes, Owen says,
then they judge you by the type of casket and all of that you might have. Alright. Well, Professor, thank you, sir. Glad to have you. I know that you went through a lot of difficulties to get onto the show. Professor Wendell Abel, he needs no introduction. Thank you, Prof. Prof, are you hearing us, Prof?
I'm hearing you.
Beautiful,
yes.
and we are hearing you. With me is Desmond Richards and Winnie Anderson Brown. Now, Prof, the first thing I'll ask you is, how serious is this issue of mental health among Jamaican children? How serious an issue is it?
Well, um, I don't know if I like the word serious, but we do know that up to about 30% of children may have mental health issues. Yes, um, varying from um, what I describe firstly as childhood trauma, or in recent times we refer to this as adverse childhood experiences, and I'll come back to that, to general behavioral problems and conduct disorder. And in older children, we may have problems with substance abuse, especially in our setting, cannabis use. And in recent years, we've seen waves of suicidal behavior among children and adolescents. And of course, we have the more severe conditions such as depression, psychotic disorders such as schizophrenia, and so on. So there's a wide range of disorders, yes? But the one that we sometimes don't speak a lot about is childhood trauma, you know? And and that's the one I'd like to focus on because I think it was last year I actually gave the Grace Kennedy Foundation lecture on childhood trauma, breaking the cycle. And I would encourage people to go back on YouTube and look at that lecture because it has been insightful and I think has provoked a lot of interest and thought. But when we talk about childhood trauma, we're talking about or sometimes you may hear me use the word adverse childhood experiences also, the ACEs. And we use ACEs because it's a kind of sexy topic, ACEs, adverse childhood experiences. But this would include such things as abuse, such as physical abuse, like the parent who beat the picnic, beat the hell out of a child, yes, and they think that is discipline, or emotional abuse, and verbal abuse, where you call the child a black picnic or you're not gonna come out to bit nothing like your worthless pooper, that sort of thing. Practices that sometimes we consider to be acceptable in our setting. And of course, sexual abuse, which is also common among children in this country. So you have
and how common is the trauma, the spectrum of the trauma, Prof? How common would a child, how often would a child experience that? Or how widespread is it?
All right, and let me, before I answer that, let me just quickly just add. So it also includes neglect, like emotional neglect and physical neglect, and then problems within the home. And this is why I want to kind of delay the common. Problems within the home would include like parent being absent, whether through death or migration. And we know how widespread migration is and how it impacts on children in this country. Having a parent who is incarcerated or a parent who is mentally ill or using drugs. But an important one is violence within the home, especially when the violence is directed towards the mother. Yes, domestic violence, violence in the home and violence in the community. And that is probably the violence is probably the most common childhood trauma. And there was a study done in 2023, the Violence Against Children study, and it showed that 8 out of 10 children in Jamaica would have reported being exposed to violence in one form or the other, whether violence in the home, violence at school in the form of bullying, or violence in the community. So the exposure...
8 out of 10?
8 out of 10, yeah. Very, 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 very frightening statistics. And that in as much as violence, exposure to violence is one of those adverse childhood experiences, then we know but we know the exposure is high. And the question is, are we then surprised? No, we're not. We know that this country has been plagued with violence for quite a while.
I have a question, Professor Abel. Would you classify spanking as a form of violence?
Well, it depends on what you call spanking.
Not beating now, not the murderation thing. A slap on the butt.
Yes, it can be a violent behavior because if you're using it as a form of discipline, there are more acceptable and gentler way to discipline a child. And I'm reflecting in terms of my own childhood. I can never recall being beaten by my parents. Yes, yet there were disciplinarians, but there are other forms, there are other ways to discipline a child without having to use physical means. But we justify it in this country, even within the church. And it's because of the legacy of violence coming from slavery. Yes? Slavery, where even it was acceptable to beat even big people on a plantation and beat the hell out of children, right? And so we justify it even within the church. Yes? The church people tell you, oh, the text doesn't go this way, but you often quote, spare the rod and spoil the child as a justification. But what a lot of people use in forms of corporal punishment is violence, right? And that is why we have the challenges that we're facing in this country today. This is a violent society, and it has normalized violence within the community and even within the home.
Desmond, you had a
Okay.
question. Go ahead, quick.
Professor, you spoke about traumatized child. What are some of the signs we should look for in a traumatized child?
That's a very good question, another good question. And I'm going to answer it by saying this. Behavior is the language of trauma. Children show us before they tell us when they are hurting. Behavior is the language of trauma. Behavior is the language of trauma. Children show us before they tell us when they are in distress. Yes? And so there are a wide host of manifestation of trauma. It can reflect, and very often in children, it may reflect in changes in behavior. So the child who is usually quiet and withdrawn may begin to show aggressive behavior, conduct problems, and so on. Or the child who was usually very lively, energetic, may become withdrawn. Some children, when they're exposed to trauma, may show what we also refer to as regressive behavior. So they start to wet bed again, they start to suck their thumb, and that sort of thing. And some children also, trauma affects the brain in such a way that the children also may begin to show decline in their performance in school. So a child, for example, who is experiencing a lot of trauma at home or in the community, may be sitting in class and they may be there daydreaming, and the teacher think that the child is not paying attention and so on. And the response usually is that child, well, I'm glad that corporal punishment is not supported in schools anymore. But in my time, a child would be beaten, right? That child who's probably been sexually abused at home, and they're in class, daydreaming. We refer to it as dissociation. That child is dissociating because that's how they deal with trauma. They daydream and they begin to mind wander off. And we don't realize that it's because of the trauma they're experiencing while they're operating like that. So trauma can affect your concentration in school. Children who are also affected by trauma become emotionally dysregulated. They can't control the emotion because the brain is so messed up, especially the areas of the brain that are responsible to deal with emotions. They also may become impulsive, and that is why impulsive and they're easily triggered, and that is why sometimes they may show aggressive behavior. There's children who are easily getting into fights. Somebody says something to them in class and they just act out and become aggressive, right? And I remember once I was doing a workshop and somebody said to me, trauma, 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 drama, drama, drama. But a lot of times when you begin to see all of this drama in the life of a child, think about trauma. Yes, and then of course, so it affects your school performance. In older children, it may lead to alcohol and drug use. And I often say to parents and to people that addiction begins and ends with pain. So that child who may be smoking ganja, yes, we make a big, of course, we're concerned about the use of the ganja and so on, but we focus a lot on the addiction and we're not thinking about the pain. What is triggering that drug use? Addiction begins and ends with pain. And a lot of time, the underlying problem is trauma, childhood trauma. We see children who display what we call self-harming behavior. They cut themselves, um, scrape their body, you know, and this self-harming behavior, we're seeing an increase in it. Sometimes many times it's non-suicidal. Sometimes it's maybe with intent to hurt self. And children who are going through a lot of pain and trauma will tell you that they do this because of the trauma, especially the chronic trauma, they become numb and they'll probably want to cut themselves just to feel some pain or to release the pain. Yes. So again, what we're saying is a self-harming behavior, right? And sometimes the suicidal attempt may be related to trauma. I'm not saying in all cases this is so, but we have to begin to look for trauma. Trauma is common in Jamaica. It affects children across the life cycle, and and it's common. It affects children across the life cycle. And so when we begin to see these behavioral changes, we have to remember behavior is a language of trauma.
Trauma. And Prof,
They tell
yeah,
us,
so we start to pick up those behaviors, or we have some doubts. Where does one go to get now a scientific and medical assessment of those children?
now, this is part of the challenge we face in Jamaica because the same study, in that same study, the violence against children study, I think it report that up to half the children with behavioral problems and so on, right, with mental health issues cannot access mental health care readily. Yes, and when they do, the wait period is long, sometimes up to 3 to 6 months to see a professional. Um, and that is because we have a shortage of skilled persons who manage and work with children with behavioral problems, children with mental health problems, and that's a challenge we face.
And what's
Uh,
the consequence of that, Prof? When we can't get our children assessed first of all properly and then treated? What's the consequence
well,
for family and nation?
well. Of course, they remain untreated, but guess what? If you never heal from what hurt you, you're going to bleed on those who never cut you. And I'll repeat, if you never heal from what hurt you, you're going to bleed from those who never cut you. Yes. And the long term implication of that is these children who are not managed properly are going to and may end up with long term behavioral problems. They, they underperform in school, possibly. They, they a lot of them become perpetrators and themselves victims of crime and violence themselves. And as they, if you never bleed from what hurt you, if you never heal from what hurt you, you're going to bleed on those who never cut you. And a lot of them may go on to engage in drug, alcohol use, and so on. Yes, and of course, there are lots of adults around who are listening. Yes, and will shake their heads and say, yes, I myself have experienced childhood trauma. I was not able to access treatment and so on. And this has affected my life to this very day. Some people are able to, to recover and move on with their lives, but many people continue to suffer even as adults because of untreated childhood trauma.
And the professionals we should be seeking out are psychiatrists for these children, or psychologists.
Well, your psychiatrist is a medical doctor who's trained, but they're usually kind of at the end of the stream. We want to be able to have other first line
Yes.
responders in the community. And we just less. I mean, you look at your healthcare services. We're looking at increasingly we're training more of our community health aides who work in the health system to be able to understand and to be able to pick up these childhood problems and to be able to intervene at the community level. We're training counselors. Fortunately for our universities, we're turning out more counselors They're working in the community. More schools are having guidance counselors who are able to screen, identify these problems and to refer them. And of course, the universities again have been doing a better job in training psychologists and of course the psychiatrists. And our social workers. Our social workers are also well trained to be able to identify these problems and to intervene. So I think over the past 25 years, there certainly has been an expansion in the number of persons that we're training to be able to provide care for children and adolescents. But despite that, the problems are so widespread and demanding that it's we don't have enough trained personnel. I'm just reflecting.
I would love you to respond to this, Prof. One of our readers is saying, so clearly more responsibility is placed on the classroom teacher to identify these trauma at an early stage, but they themselves, meaning the teachers, were not trained to do so, hence might be reacting rather than responding to.
That is true, and it's true that we have to continue to train our teachers to be able to identify these problems. But teachers at an early age, especially in the early childhood sector, right? We have to be able to pick up these problems very early. But as we're speaking about this, where we really have to focus a lot of our attention is parenting. And maybe this is where I should have started the whole discussion in terms of how do we prevent all of this, especially the childhood trauma. And I do gardening a lot, and when I'm out doing my gardening, I look at plants. And sometimes I look at the farmers and I see they plant a tree. And you know what the farmer will do to that tree? He will stake it to make sure the tree is sturdy. He'll make sure the tree is watered, so he nurtures it. And sometimes if there are goats around or predators, he's going to put some wire around it to protect the tree. We learn this even with trees, and it tells us some lessons in terms of how we should deal with children. For children need to be brought up in an environment that is safe, stable, and secure and nurturing. And I'll repeat it. Children need to be safe, stable, and secure. Yes? For that child to experience healthy development, safe, stable, and secure. Yes? And that's what trauma does. Trauma doesn't make their environment safe, especially a child who is being beaten or bullied or sexually abused. It is not stable if for some reason they're being shifted from one caregiver to another and they're not getting, and it's not healthy, that development, if it's not nurturing and their parents there who are giving them emotional support. Or it can be stable if the parents are there beating and criticizing and hurting that child. And what we must remember, so the environment must be safe, it must be stable, it must be secure. SSS, safe, stable, and secure. And when this doesn't happen, trauma prevents this from happening, then children are very vulnerable, yes, to trauma, and this will cause unhealthy development. And therefore,
Prof, what about homes where people provide all of that, and the child then finds a way of abusing the mother or abusing the father or behaving totally contrary to what's going on? Parents provide everything.
You may think so, that they're providing everything, right? Because sometimes you may be providing for that child financially and so on, but the home, there are problems within the home. On the outside, you may think that they're providing everything, but it may not be a safe environment. It may not be a nurturing environment, and that the child may be unhappy. Yes, because it
can't be just a picnic bad, Prof.
No.
We don't have any of those things where the picnic is bad and can't be controlled.
No, lots of times we see that child and we think the child is bad, and lots of times it's the child is sad. Behavior is a language of trauma. Children show us before they tell us when they're in danger. And so let's come back, because you kind of touch a point. what the study is showing us. What the study is showing us is that how do we buffer children? What is it that is the strongest protective factor in a child's life? And all the study has shown us is having an adult, a trusted adult in one's life, whether it's one parent, a teacher, or somebody in the community. Yes, right? That having an adult, a trusted adult that will provide that sense of safety, that sense of stability, that nurturing is very protective. Yes. And so one of the things that we need to do in this country is to play a lot of emphasis on parenting, yes, and strengthen parenting skills, yes, because that is highly protective. That when children are in an environment where they're safe and they're stable and they're secure, they will experience healthy development. And we've demonstrated that in Jamaica, Many years ago, they did a study which is called the famous Jamaican study. But at the time, they were dealing with children who were undernourished. And they had one group that they just provided nutritional supplements for. But there was another group that they provided an intervention. They used community health workers to provide parenting education. They'll do some stimulation of these children, just plus the nutritional supplementation, But they added to it parenting education, so to encourage the parents to be good parent, to create a safe environment, a nurturing environment, a secure environment, and of course, some stimulation of the children. And what that study showed is that when these children got into their 20s, those who got the additional parenting support, yes, and got the stimulation from an early age, those children did better in school. They were less likely to be involved in criminal activity, yes, and they were more likely to be productive adults. And what this has taught us is that when children get a good start, they get a good finish. And it reminds me of Shelley and Fraser Price, when she gets out of that block first and get a good start, right? The game is over. It's a great finish, right? So it's about giving these children a great start, right? With greater emphasis on parenting.
So along those lines, Prof, I've got to ask you, just beg you to talk to the poor Jamaican, rural Jamaican, hardworking Jamaican, and tell us what you should do to help your child's mental health. What should you do proactively? Talk directly to them.
A lot of hardworking, Jamaicans know that it's about creating a safe environment for children, yes. Provide love, give them love and attention, yes. Don't murder them with a beating, we murder your picnic, yes. Try to find more appropriate and gentler forms of discipline a child, yes. And of course, when you begin to see a child showing any sort of behavioral problem, they're not doing good in school, they're acting out, it may be a sign that they are in distress. And what we should do when we see the early signs, take them to see a professional as early as possible. I know it may be difficult, but as best as you can, seek professional care as quickly as possible. And especially in the context of the hurricane, and I'm deeply concerned about this because, a hurricane is called a collective trauma. So many people have been affected, yes? So many communities have been devastated. You go through Westmoreland and especially the 5 affected parishes, and you see the destruction to houses, to community, to school, and their children still in shelter and families in shelter. And you know how difficult it must be. The dislocation, the loss in learning, yes, the destruction of their communal markers and the space where they used to play and run around. It must be difficult for children. In some instances, families are in overcrowded homes, and that put them at risk for all types of the abuse, including sexual abuse. And what we're saying is that we have to look out for the problems. We have to support our children. Parents have to do even more to help create a safe and stable sure that they get early care.
Professor, it's so refreshing to hear you, sir. I know you have so much of this, and your lecture was in 2025, the Grace Kennedy lecture?
That's correct, yes, and I encourage people to go and watch it.
Yes,
you look at the
that's
short version. There's a long version, and there's a short version, and I think you're coming to a close, but I just want to remind people, remember, if you never heal from what hurt you, you're going to bleed on those who never cut you.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Professor Wendell Abel. He's such an accomplished man. I can tell you about his accomplishment, because when he first got his big academic achievements, I spoke with him at that time, interviewed him many years ago. He's now out of Jamaica, and he's a professor of great learning, and as you see, he explains things in a simple way. Professor Wendell Abel. I'm Franklin McKnight, and I thank you for being with us on the program today. And thank you, Desmond and Winnie. Thank those of you who commented. And sorry we didn't have Professor for the whole hour as we had hoped, but that is life. Thanks again to everybody, and particularly to Professor Wendell Abel. Leaving you now, reminding you to subscribe to the program, to like and share it. On behalf of all of us, I'm Franklin McKnight.
The lights go up, the mics are lit. We're feeling that energy, that Sunday drive. Whether you're here while the clock is ticking, or catching the replay, the plot is thickening. From the very first word to the final thought, you're the reason for every battle we fought. Oh, to our zealots, the ones who stay, and our viewers watching from miles away. If you live in the chat or on a late night screen, you're the heartbeat of the Frankly Speaking scene. We see you, we hear you, we appreciate the love. You're the spark we're always thinking of.